It's 1889, and we're looking down Old Esquimalt Road towards Vic West. Near the bottom of the hill is the home of Joseph and Frances Bayley. Their second of 4 children has just been born. Frances was proprietor of the Trenton Hotel, and Joseph operated the Bowling Green Park Eatery next door. These establishments up behind the Bayley home were later renamed the Halfway House, although it's not the one that we, or some of us, are familiar with on Esquimalt Road. When the new Esquimalt Road was built, those buildings were knocked down and rebuilt, facing the new road. But Joseph Bayley died before his time, and the eldest son, Joseph Stanley Bayley, had to go to work at a young age. He became a lather and was a prominent member of the Victoria West Athletic Club. Like so many other young athletes of the day, he was an all-rounder, a popular and indispensable player with West's junior field lacrosse team and the intermediate soccer team. Joe also played basketball and also rowed for the James Bay Athletic Association. Later, he played halfback for the Victoria West senior soccer side when they were city and island champions 4 years in a row. Joe was most remarkable for his tireless energy. It was said, when Bayley is in the lineup, it seems like West have an extra man on the field. But it was in boxing that Joe Bayley made his mark in all senses of the word. In just 4 short years in the ring at the Vic West clubhouse with his friend Scotty Mackay, Joe went from novice to Canadian lightweight champion. Coley Hall was his manager when he began an amateur career with a 4-round bout at a club tournament in 1908 and then won the 105-pound title in Vancouver. Over the next 2 years, he remained unbeaten. In 1910, he turned professional with a fight in Ladysmith where he knocked out Kid Maxwell in round 11. Then, with a Mr. Barnard, a local businessman, as his new manager, he built up a pro record of 10 wins, all by the knockout, over Rothes and Nanaimo, and fights in Cumberland, Ladysmith, Prince Rupert, Tabor, Alberta, and over Billy Lauder, the Western title holder in the 3rd round at Edmonton on December 4th, 1911. Now known as KO Joe Bayley, he was flooded with challengers and scheduled a bout in Saskatoon. That matchup against DeCourcey went the full 15 rounds before a knockout in the final round. Bayley arrived home for a 2-week rest from the ring and got a rousing welcome when he was introduced at a JBAA amateur fight tournament being held in the Drill Hall. He received a similar reception when he and Al Davies were the headliners at a smoker at the newly opened Arcade Club on Government Street. In March 1912, Bayley fought a Seattle boy named Scott to a 15-round draw in Prince Rupert. Unfortunately, he injured his hand in the 4th round, and that kept him from finishing off Scott early. While waiting for his injured hand to heal, Bayley spent time on the vaudeville circuit. Meanwhile, Tommy Burns, after losing his heavyweight title, got into the fight promotion business. One of his first events was to match Joe Bayley with Billy Allen, the Eastern champion and declared Canadian title holder. Joe's new manager, Morris Condon, got a guarantee of $600 plus expenses for himself, the trainer, and sparring partner. And then, with Burns as referee, booked a $2,000 bout in Bassano, about 50 miles of flat fields east of Calgary. Bayley was leading a hermit's life, secluded at the 4 Mile House, cut off from his old haunts and friends. He'd get up at 6, spend 2 hours on the road, then some skipping, a shower, and rub down between 3 square meals a day. He kept his weight under 130 pounds as he had to post a $200 forfeit fee. But he promised, "I'm not worried, I'll get that back along with the winner's purse." Former Western champion Billy Lauder, the man Joe KO'd in 3 rounds the year before in Edmonton, backed that claim. He declared, "Bayley is the best for his weight in the ring today." On June 27, 1912, a record crowd of more than 2,500 gathered in Bassano for the 15-round match. During the day, the quiet Main Street became a miniature goldfield, with shell and con games doing brisk business throughout the afternoon. Most of the fight fans came in by special train from Calgary, and another contingent arrived on the regular 5 o'clock. Wearing the same gloves that Burns and Johnson had used in their Australian title fight, Allen had the best of the affair until the 10th round. Then, with his face puffed and bruised, Bayley, who'd been content to work his opponent's body, came out fighting like a demon. He carried the fight to the ex-champion for the final 5 rounds with aggressive tactics and stiff punches. Joe was all over him in the 15th, scoring the only knockdown, and had Allen on the verge of collapsing at the final bell. When referee Burns raised Bayley's arm, that touched off a great uproar as the new champion was carried from the ring by the Victoria fans at the fight. At the age of 22, Joe Bayley was the new Canadian lightweight title holder. It It was a case of a clever fighter going down in defeat to a rugged battler. Alan, dissatisfied with the decision, demanded a rematch, while Joe, the pride of Victoria, was welcomed home by his fight fans. Now, although Victoria had professional hockey, baseball, and soccer teams at the time, neither Victoria nor Vancouver would allow pro boxing in their jurisdictions. But then it was announced that Bayley would fight a rare pro bout in Victoria after Oak Bay was paid a $100 permit fee. In August, Bayley faced Pat Scott at the Patrick's new hockey arena. Nearly 3,000 fans saw Bayley win his only Victoria Pro fight with a knockout in the 6th round. On September 4th, 1912, Billy Allen got his rematch, and the two met in Calgary this time. And Joe Bayley proved without a doubt that he was worthy of the title by knocking out Allen in the 3rd round. When a Calgary fight with Pat Brown was called off after Brown failed to meet the 133-pound weight limit, Joe agreed to fight the highly rated Dick Hyland on Thanksgiving Day. Bayley and Hyland fought to a 15-round draw, but the Condon-Bayley contract stated that if both fighters are still standing after 15 rounds, the fight is declared a draw and the champion retains the title. Not surprisingly, Hyland demanded a rematch. 1913 started with a bad omen when Bayley's sparring partner badly damaged one of his ears. Undeterred, the lightweight champ made a chopping block out of Tom Moore in Nanaimo before he was scheduled to defend his title against Kid Scaler in Edmonton. That bout was postponed as Bayley's hand was in a cast and Condon refused to let his boy scrap until the hand was back in perfect shape. A news item that February announced that Charlie Riley, the Frisco lightweight, and Bayley will clash for the Canadian title next month in a $2,500 battle with an additional $2,000 side bet from each fighter. The fight was staged on March 29th in Steveston, just outside the reach of Vancouver's boxing ban bylaw. Condon was in the crowd with a fistful of $100 bills to match any Riley backers. Some 2,500 fight fans, including more than 100 from Victoria, saw Bayley easily defeat Riley. He had the challenger on the ropes for most of the fight, but his still injured left hand prevented a knockout punch. Bayley and company walked away with $5,000 in their pocket. Condon then announced that he would send his boy after bigger game should he score a victory over Frenchie Vase in a 4-rounder using small gloves at Seattle. 2 boatloads of Bayley backers were booked with a lot of money waiting to be covered in the Emerald City. Frenchie Vase, a practically unknown young boxer from Renton, met the Canadian champ, who had to go full out for all 4 rounds to earn a draw. Bayley's list of challengers grew. Former Canadian champ Ernie Barrio of Vancouver was the next to get a shot at the champion in a contest at Brighouse Arena in Richmond. Heading into the match, Bayley said, "I may not be as clever and fancy as some would like, but I've never lost a decision as an amateur or a professional, and have yet to be knocked to my knees." Before the largest mainland boxing crowd ever, he then easily defeated Barrio in the 10th round after the challenger wilted in the 5th. On June 3rd, Joe underwent treatment for his injured left hand in Tacoma, where a specialist reset a dislocated finger. Shortly after, he was scheduled to box in Vancouver on a Tuesday, Port Angeles on a Friday, and then back at Brighouse against Vase for his 3rd battle of the month. The Bayley-Rothas fight in Port Angeles was called off, though, after poor promotion resulted in fewer than 300 tickets being sold. About half of those tickets were bought here in Victoria. But then on July 2nd, 1913, came this incredible headline. Yes, the Victoria boy was defeated for the first time in his boxing career, losing the Canadian Championship to an unknown. It was one of the most exciting fights ever and went the full 15 rounds, with the challenger outboxing the former title holder over the last 10. Now it was Joe Bayley's turn to demand a rematch. That happened in August, once again at Brighouse in Richmond. In the 13th round, a wicked right cross floored the pride of Victoria. Joe, who up to that point had led the match, was up in an instant and clinched through the remainder of the round. He made a game showing to the finish, although the new champion had him beaten in the last rounds. When the ref raised the fists of both fighters, a huge cheer went up. But Bayley's busy boxing career, in which he defended his Canadian title almost monthly, was over. Joseph Stanley Bayley married Effie Gouge on November 11, 1915. They were the 3rd generation to have lived at 897 Old Esquimalt Road. Their only child, Joseph Alexander, unfortunately died fighting in Italy during World War II. In 1942, Joe Bayley's obituary appeared in the Penticton newspaper and was copied by the Victoria papers. But the following day, the news desk received a phone call from Joe. He wanted them to know that he was alive and well in Vancouver. It turned out that this Bayley fellow in the Okanagan who had died had boasted to his buddies for years that he was the Bayley who used to be the Canadian boxing champion 30 years before. It would be apparently another 23 years before the real Canadian champion Joe Bayley would finally fail to answer the bell. That was in 1965 in Terrace at the age of 76. And so tonight, we posthumously induct boxer Joe Bayley into the Greater Victoria Sports Hall of Fame.